Okay, so now we're going to go over some of the disclosures and addendums that can be attached to your real estate contract or that you might see within the real estate transaction in Florida. A real estate disclosure and addendum are crucial components to a property's transaction. It serves to inform both the buyer and seller about pertinent details related to the property being sold. The purpose of a disclosure is to protect the buyer by ensuring they have a clear understanding of the property's condition before finalizing the purchase. It helps prevent future disputes between the buyer and seller by establishing transparency about the property's state. So, when you are filling out your disclosures as a seller, you want to be very open and very transparent. You don't want to act like you're hiding anything or attempt to hide anything because it prevents, you from possibly being sued in the future. And it also gives that buyer a clear understanding of what is going on with that property and what they want to take on. An addendum is an additional document attached to the purchase agreement or contract that outlines specific terms, conditions, or modifications to the original agreement. They can cover various aspects, such as repairs to be completed before the sale, changes in closing dates, adjustments to the purchase price, or any other negotiated terms. So once you get a buyer and you have a contract, if something comes later and say, oh, we wanted to change the contract date or the list date, um, or the closing date, then you would do an addendum for that, right? So they may say, oh, January 1st, and then they may come back and say, oh, I can't close until the 15th. So then we would do an addendum to change that. So this is just a few of the disclosures and addendums I wanted to kind of show. This was a seller's disclosure form. This is a non-occupant occupied property one. Investors typically use this when they have obtained a property and they're saying, hey, I never lived there, so I don't know what's going on with the property. Not necessarily true always. So you would definitely get an inspection done so that you can see for yourself as a buyer what is going on with that property. As a seller, as an investor, of course, you can use this form, but then you also want to let the buyer know anything you do know if you know anything that's going on with that property. This is a community development district addendum, again, an attachment to the contract. This is if the property has a CDD fee. Um, you would put all the information on here as a seller, the name of district, how much that is per month or annual, however that is paid, and then disclose that to the buyer prior to contract. So all of these things should be done at the listing. This is the lead-based paint disclosure. So this is for homes that were built before 1978. And this is just, of course, to let the buyer know there could be less lead-based paint in the property, not that there is, and that they have a right to review that and get that checked. Here's a check mark right here. You can put receive a 10-day opportunity in order to check that property. They do not have to, but this is the seller saying, hey, I know this property was built before a certain time. You just might want to get it checked because we don't want any issues later. This is a homeowners association community disclosure. It's kind of like your CDD disclosure, where if you have a monthly fee, you will put that in here. You also put the name of the community and who to contact, contact person, phone, email address, also the associate's website. This is so that the buyer can reach out to them if they'd like to ask questions, get any documents they may need on their end. Once you go through this process with HOA, each one has their own process of selling a property or transferring it over to a new buyer or owner. So of course, each one is different. So you would reach out to them separately as a buyer, but on the seller side, this is just letting the buyer know who the HOA is, how much it is, if they need approval. Some HOAs you do need approval for, not all. But this is definitely going to be something that you have done, and so that we can disclose that prior to that buyer obtaining the property. And lastly, this is an affiliated business arrangement disclosure. This is from Charles Rutenberg because that is who my broker is. This document is a disclosure notice from the broker. Seller and the property would go there. And this is just letting you know that our broker is associated with these entities. They do have their title insurance, closing, this is the title company, and they're just letting you know that if you use Integrity Title Guarantee Agency, which I typically don't, depending on where my property is located in Florida, I like to um, put the title company close to the property. It just helps with the closing date, closing time, so that buyers can, get to their property as soon as they're done closing. But I like to put it close. And it's just letting you know upfront what their fees are, and so that you can kind of search for your own. If you have a different title company you want to use, you will let your realtor know as a seller, this is who I'd like to use. If the buyer comes in and says, hey, this is who we would like to use, then that is something that is negotiated on the contract. And typically they will offer to pay certain services in order for them to use their title company, and seller would sign and acknowledge that they do understand. So these are just a few of the documents that you might see just in a traditional sell and purchase in Florida. Make sure you, of course, are reading over everything and have a clear understanding as a seller and a buyer of what you're offering and what you're getting. Thank you for listening, and have a good day.